Thank you. There's some background. Yeah. So as I was saying, I want to welcome everybody to this session. We are part of SCPC, which stands for Supply Chain Practitioners Council. And I want to welcome everybody on board. I'm going to welcome our moderator, Mr. Prasad Kurup. A quick introduction to Prasad. He's a senior partner with IBM, leads data and technology transportation portfolio of services for Asia Pacific. What does this entail? It entails technologies like big data, AI, ML, connected solutions, blockchain, and automation, among other things. Yeah. Prasad's responsible for driving growth and client value by designing and delivering innovative offerings, assets, and approaches, then reimagine the way business processes are executed. Prasad partners with clients to deliver business outcomes by infusing these exponential technologies and in the process drive intelligent workflows. Prasad Kurup has over 23 years of experience in the advisory and technology services business, and his area of expertise include digital operations, business process, transformation, and connected solution. Prasad also is part of the steering committee in driving SCPC to where we are. So on to Prasad, who will welcome our guest. Go ahead, Prasad, take it away. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Arvinder, and welcome to the session, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to Balpreet. Thank you for taking out the time on a holiday that generally people would take a lovely nap. So appreciate you taking the time out. Team, just to introduce Balpreet, he's somebody who spent nearly just about 2 decades in the industry. Not as young as he looks. He's a fairly experienced, seasoned profession. He's got his masters from IIM Kozhikode, a BE Mechanical from NIT Rourkela. He currently works with RIL as the assistant vice president for managing digital transformations. So in his current role, he's working as a product manager and a scrum master across multiple projects. Prior to RIL, he's worked as a program manager for multi-year business transformation. He's managed digital supply chain transformation program, which uses analytics, data science, automation. Essentially, he's been impacting business with all the great digital stuff around analytics. He's also worked with SCM Consulting with SAP India and Brussels Code. So he's worked with global clients across multiple industry verticals. So I'm sure that will come in handy in today's discussion. And he's got in-depth exposure to utilizing IT solutions in solving supply chain problems across various projects. So he's both a practitioner, he's an in-depth project manager. Balpreet has worked as an SME for development of analytical products at SAP Labs. So whatever we see and experience the SAP product, I'm sure Balpreet has got a big hand in that one. And he's always keen to share his knowledge. I mean, you can see that. I mean, not many speakers would volunteer to stand up on a Saturday afternoon and spend their time. So thank you for that. And he also has created a video series on AI in SCM and a podcast on digital transformation. He's also helping the academia. He's part of the board of studies for a private university in Navi Mumbai. Balpreet, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out for this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Kurup.
Okay,
so I don't put people to sleep on a Friday afternoon. I hope it will be good enough and interesting enough for people to bear with me for another one.
Trust me, I mean, you and I won't. I mean, we'll ensure that we make it enough. We make it enough more exciting to kind of keep them awake and have a lot of takeaways for everybody. So, Balpreet, I mean, before we start on the topic, just talk about your journey. I mean, you're absolute passionate on this topic, your role in technology, digitization of supply chain, and what's your motivation? I mean, just give us the landscape in which you operate and what drives you.
Well, the biggest motivation is to solve a business problem, and incidentally, for me, almost all of my journey in professional career has been on supply chain. So that has been, if I would put it, my bread and butter. So if there is something which can be solved via an IT enabler or using data and figuring out what better can we do in terms of taking a business decision, or what are the what ifs and what not to do, what to do, that's what has been what I've tried to work on. I consider myself an entrepreneur. So my journey at RL has been like around more than 10 years now. And and try out to do different things with those stakeholders, and we have been able to make an impact. And even my earlier journey in consulting also, I was fortunate to work with some leading global clients across geography. So supply chain is something that infused me. I had an operation as a majors in IMK as well. So that is what I try to see to it, that technology, be it anything earlier, it would have been an ERP, and now it is all those digital technologies that makes an impact. So that's how my journey has been for 18 plus years now.
I mean, great. And I'm actually, to be honest, I've heard this, start with the business problem. I mean, no better start than, anything else. It's not about plunking in the technology. It's about what is the business problem. So thanks for that, Balpreet. Give us an overview about data analytics. I mean, it's an in thing talked about, and it's relevant to the current business context, Balpreet.
Yeah, so, data analytics, all of us would have heard about it here or there in bits and pieces. So what does it do? The basics is that we need raw data and we try to get some conclusions, some insights out of it. So that's the basic sense in layman words. That's what data analytics would do. And how can we do that, or how is it done? So if I put in sort of a framework, there are four different or four subcategories within this stream called data analytics. What was being done for quite a few years was what we can term it as a descriptive analytics, that something happened in the past. We tried to look at that data. Earlier it was manual, and then it started getting digitized, and then we put it on dashboards to look at it, that what happened. I know that the sales for the last month is whatever units, it corresponds to a dollar or a rupee number, and what has been the trend, that, okay, I know that in last 12 months or 6 months, whether it's going up or going down. So that's what is one kind of, or one subdivision of analytics. Over a period of time, then when people started getting in, they wanted to know, why did it happen? Something has happened in the past. Now, why did it happen? So this is what can be termed as in a subdivision called diagnostic. So we will want to figure out, if a problem has happened, why is that happened, or something is going right, why is it going right? So root cause analysis that we very often do in supply chain in various processes would come under this. Then after these two subdivisions is where technology starts playing a little bigger role. Predictive analytics. Now I know why. Can I figure out what do I do differently in the future based on the trends or the historical data? So that is what predictive. It will tell us that what will happen if, let's say, my production increases by 20% or reduces by 20%. Or from a customer's perspective, if a customer has bought something, what is the likelihood that that customer, it could be a B2B customer, it could be a B2C customer, whether that customer would buy something different as well vis-a-vis the product that the customer or the organization was buying something from me. And the biggest, the last level or the highest level of analytics would be prescriptive analytics. That it is wherein, we get into the realm of AI and ML, that things would be told by the technology, by the system, that if something has happened, what are the corrective actions, or what you need to do in order to improve from there. Let's say from a supply chain perspective, if I need to know that, min and max of my inventory levels, rather than, I doing a lot of number crunching, the output can come to me saying that based on whatever has the inputs being put into the algorithm, or the inputs, I'll get to know what is the min and the max level. Now, this is like basics of, if I put in terms of analytics and, bit of a theoretical concept. Now, everywhere, whenever we do something, it has to have a business context, as we discussed a couple of minutes back. So it does, hit business here or there. We know that, decision comes out of some, by help of some data is better than a gut feel or an instinctive based decision. So the data, when we put into a dashboard or put in through an algorithm, can help us in coming out with some better insights and inputs. So data analytics can be put to use by business in multiple different ways to increase efficiency, to improve productivity, so on and so forth. You're not audible, Prasad.
Prasad, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks for that. I was talking on mute. Now, I was saying it is good to have a structure about the descriptive diagnostics, predictive and prescriptive. I think it also kind of manifests what where the actually organization is on the journey as well. I mean, it helps mark the journey and therefore tell them, look, I mean, this is what will get you to the next level. So great thought on that one, Balpreet. You talked about analytics and supply chain. I mean. And you've been somebody who's dabbled in a lot of technology in supply chain. I mean, could you talk about some of the applications in supply chain, Balpreet?
Yeah, definitely. So in supply chain as one business function or any other business function, when we talk about in any application and specifically in today's discussion context, data analytics, we can have a lot of inputs. So if I look at that descriptive and diagnostic bit of it, organizations where a lot of organizations were there at that level earlier, maybe some of them would still be there, would not have graduated above. So they would have some dashboard in terms of what has been my forecast accuracy or what are my inventory levels. Some of these reports gets generated by a lot of organization, let's say for a past day. On the next day, that let's say on Saturday, they would get to know that what has been their sales till Friday, what are the inventory levels at their various plants and warehouses, and visualize it over a very nice looking dashboard. So this is somewhere one part of the usage of the analytics and supply chain can come in terms of just looking at that. A little further, if we move on to it, then there are other applications, and I can start with, let's say, the plan part of it in terms of the score model. So if I want to do demand planning, I would use past data for last few years of sales that I have for various SKUs, and I would put it to use in terms of forecasting the sales for my next few months, quarters, or couple of years. So that's another, taking it to the next level in terms of trying to utilize my data in order to tell me what can happen in the future. And with that demand, I would be able to, plan my production, plan my procurement. So the whole journey in terms of how do I start producing something and distributing to my various touch points to the customers can be done. The other things where analytics can come into picture also is, let's say, my logistics route optimization. That how do I know that which route is profitable to me? Do I need to plan for something like a milk run? From a warehousing concept, we can look at space optimization. That am I utilizing my space within the warehouse? Do I need to put in multiple racks so that I get better bang for my money? So this way, if I have data points, I would be able to make sense in a lot of such processes within the ambit of supply chain as well. And there could be a lot of examples. I think you would have also seen so many. So maybe you could also cite a couple of these examples that you have seen.
Sure. Sure. I mean, I'll pick up with the last one, right? You mentioned logistics. In fact, we're working with a mining company, Balpreet. And in the mining world, one of the largest, before I continue, team, the audience, my request is if you have any questions, feel free to, get it. We'll make it interactive, team. I mean, we're not going to have a monologue just between the two of us. So feel free to put in your questions on the chat. Take the liberty to unmute when we have a pause and ask your questions. I mean, like I said, we're going to keep it like an open forum. So I'm looking forward to some questions. If not, I can be notorious and call out people to ask questions. So I would rather request you keep your questions handy.
Yeah, Kurup.
Awesome. So just as an example, in fact, I was talking about the mining case, Balpreet. So the mining, as you know, right, is a very, very complex supply chain when it comes to inbound logistics of all the ores coming in from different parts of the world. And in the shipping world, I mean, if you save a day, I mean, that is a demurrage saved for that, for which is about $8,000 to $10,000 in a day. So what we are doing is, for a mining company, we are using AI ML to predict more accurately when will the ship actually come on time, or come rather and arrive at the dock, so that you can actually better plan the supply chain. And in that variability or the laycan that the industry typically gives is about plus minus 5 days. We're able to kind of get it down to plus minus 1 or 2 days and therefore use that. What are the variables? The variables are the port documents. The variables are the current position of the ships. The variables are the weather data that comes in. So using these kind of dynamics, we use that to kind of predict a more accurate arrival of the vessel. I think good old days. I know I used to stand outside the gate and look for the truck coming in with my suppliers' parts out there. I mean, I've been in the automotive industry, so I mean, till the time the truck gets to the gate, your heart is in your mouth, right? So that's as an example. So those days I used to think, I wish. And these are the days of no cell phones. I mean, I've been a bit dated in the era. So I wish this guy could get down and make a call and let me know what time is he going to come in. So there was a big a blind spot between the time the truck leaves the supplier and comes to your gate out there. But today, I think that thankfully with absolute real-time traceability and IoT, etc., you literally know if the driver is taking a break as well. I mean, you can catch him and call him and say, get under the truck and get my goods out here. So hey, thanks for that. I'll take a pause and just check out with the audience if they have any questions, team, or I'll keep going on.
So, when you brought in this mining concepts, that's a bit of or a major part of my life. My dad was a mines engineer. So in SCC Cements, so I have lived a part of my life understanding how those mining processes in a limestone, open pit mines are. And when we talk about data points, who is doing, who is not doing so good. So I remember the mines was like 7 to 8 kilometers from the crusher where the cement plant was. And how many trips does the driver make used to be one of the parameters, that whether they are doing good or bad. And everything was, written in terms of, on a pen and paper in a register that, okay, he left the mines at so much time and he reached the crusher at so much time. My dad used to get both of these and we used to help him calculate that, okay, who is in gold level in terms of the driving, thumb rules, and who is silver and so on. So that's how I just recalled that was a data point, but everything was done in a register with a pen and paper. And mining anyways means I've been following, so the way you talked about, I can definitely relate. So that's one sector which personally, based on my early part of life, I have a lot of memories. Mining and cement is something you can't take out of my...
Okay. That's interesting. We could go on. I mean, we're doing some work with Cemex actually in Mexico. And I've done a fair bit of work in that sector as well. I mean, again, classical, route optimization problems of a concrete truck which needs to leave and reach within a time. Otherwise, you get solidified cement which nobody wants to touch.
Yes.
Or if it's about the arrival of the raw materials into the plant for mixing, etc. A lot of problems. I mean, I think maybe we'll keep it another day. Our deep dive on minds on that one. Okay. So if the audience has no questions, I'm going to keep going, team.
Kurup, I have a quick
go for it.
Question for Balpreet.
Yes.
You're part of Reliance, right? Geo, I guess, is also something you may have dabbed into. I'm wondering, is there any applications of analytics to identify, from an FMCG sector, product that is about to expire, that should not show up on the shelf? Is there any applications of data analytics that's been done to make sure the product that is coming to the shelf at the D-marts and the Geo-marts is not expired? Yeah. So just want to put that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are these and a lot of other scenarios. Unfortunately, this is something which I am not authorized to speak outside. But in short, like any other, e-com or a retail provider is doing, everything or maybe a little more is being done in-house. And thanks to Geo, yes, a lot of things get streamlined in a little better way. But specifics, yes, there are use cases which unfortunately means one-on-one I can talk, but not on an open forum.
I understand, and of course we respect confidentiality. I'm glad to know that this is something that is being looked at, which is very important. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. On to you, Prasad.
Hey, thanks for that, Arvind. So I know we both of us talked about some international examples. I mean, let's get to some Indian context. I mean, we are a very complex and a very diverse supply chain arena out here. So, Balpreet, why don't you give us some examples from the Indian context?
Right. So, a few examples, I can think of is one is a bigger brand name that we all know, Asian Paints. So Asian Paints has been using supply chain control tower. It's all, data being fed and what sort of insights that they can get so that they make life of the business people easier. So they have been doing it for quite some time. They don't call it control tower, they call it distributors workbench. Like one of the use case that I felt that they have put to use is very good. So what they do it is that any orders that their dealers place before 11 a.m. in tier 1 cities, they are able to service the orders to them on the same day. It's like, the Amazon Prime version of Asian Paints, that order by such and such time get delivered on the same day. So this uses a lot of data at the back end. And even in COVID times, this is what helped them keep the supply chain running. So tremendous. We could even talk about Marico doing some bit of, an e-com in-house where they are trying to directly sell it to a customer rather than going via their regular distributor route. So they have also been able to improve on their e-com sales using data in terms of what the customer would be buying, how they would want to stock it. Can they reduce the time in a way that Asian Paints is doing it? So can they reduce the deliver time to as less as possible? So these are some big names that we already know. There's one more example that I can cite. We were talking about cement mines and those things. So this is one company in Madurai called Concretia. It had a different name earlier. It's been there in the market for maybe around 20 years. And during COVID, they completely transformed the way they did their business. Till earlier, they used to rely everything on basically it was manual, not much of a system. So there were, even if there was data, it was in silos. They did not know how to cater to their customer in a seamless way. And at times the expectation of the customers was not getting met. They overhauled the system, came in with a completely new end-to-end IT implementation, which started getting them data across. They also used geotagging, etc. Over top of it. Now with this set of data, one thing that they got was transparency across supply chain. They know what is happening where, and their customers were spread across Madurai district as of now. But their wish was that they would want to scale up across, first within the state, then southern India, and so on. So this gave them a backbone that now if I can do it for within one district, I'd be able to scale up as and when needed. So transparency was clear, KPI tracking what they wanted to do, whether the order is coming in on time, whether the order is leaving their premises, the stone crushers that they have reaching their customers. So they have like 400 plus customers. So this way, what I feel is that yes, bigger brand name have been using it for quite some time, maybe initially some dashboards and now predictive and prescriptive. However, even smaller names have started getting into it because they see a business value that if I spend X rupees into it, I would get an ROI in a specific time frame, and hence it makes sense for me to put in is sort of an IT structure in place so that I start getting the output, I start utilizing the data that it is churning out on a daily basis, which helps me in improving my business and KPIs.
Got it. Got it. Hey, I know you, like I said, you've got a very diverse career between technology and being in the industry and being in consulting. Talk about the challenges. It's not as rosy as it looks like. I mean, it's not like you come in and you put in a technology and lo and behold, you have everything available for you to kind of analyze out there. What are the adaptations? I mean, I'm sure the Indian psyche of the jugaad definitely works out there as well. How do you do the jugaad of the technology onto the Indian supply chain? Just talk us about some of the experiences in terms of. Okay, so I'm going to be a bit. Let me pause there. Sorry, I see a hand raising.
Yes.
Ishi, is that you? I'll let the audience come in and maybe I'll follow on with this question in a bit in a moment.
Yeah, Prasad. Yeah, one question I was having to Balpreet. Balpreet, currently there's a lot of interest and a lot of people are there who are learning this type of analytical AI, ML things and all. So how practical, maybe from your experience, can you throw some light onto the new data scientist, how practical they could contribute in a big way in terms of bringing this AI ML techniques to use? Is it practically possible, or is it like solution-based providers only can contribute in a big way, wherein it's not easy for individual to bring that momentum sort of thing?
Okay, so if I've understood the question right, you're saying that can an individual or maybe within the organization, can something be done, or we need to always look up to some of the solution providers? Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
broadly right.
Okay, so in a way, means it's more of a decision. Now, when it comes to what you're talking about, data science and AI and ML. So what happens is, in terms of the learning curve for people to get into it and start using it, it's a bit of a gestation period that we have. It's not that if I want to get into that area, I would be able to be up and running in a matter of, let's say, 2-3 months in a way. So it would need time from that individual as well, and from an organization maturity and readiness perspective as well. It has to have that level where they have used. However, yes, I have in my network people who started off on their own. They had a bit of a coding background. So that is one thing which is needed if somebody has to get into a pure data science as a role. Because that it is a little, analytics is a subset, if I put it that way, and data science is that superset where we would have to get the data, prep the data, make it run through models. And a lot of times, the prep of the data is where we face the biggest hurdle, that in terms of whether the data quality is good or not that way. So all these things, how to do, what to do, so that I am ready to use any of these models. Now, those models, you may want to, code something, or you may want to then leverage, an Azure or a Google platform, what they've already provided that way. So this is where the second part of your question, that can we do it in-house? Yes. However, it's an investment of time, effort, people's, it's a career that people would want to take. Otherwise, what happens is, for the organization, like, when we talk about AAS as a service. So this is also, if I look at it, let's say Azure or Google Cloud, they give these models as a service. Now I can take the input. Azure has a service. I don't remember the name now. So means it can do a lot of these, steps to in-house. So the CI/CD pipeline, as we talk about it in that. So it can be taken care of. You don't have to set up that. Otherwise, you'll have to buy a license, let's say, from Azure, or it could be Amazon, AWS, or it could be some open source. So if the organization is ready to spend time and effort, yes, it can be done in-house. But for the sake of ease, if you leave it to the expert, let it be, the infrastructure where it is hosted can be, on a cloud. You could take some, external help initially, build that what we call as COEs in-house, take it up from there. Prasad, if you want to add something here based on what you would have consulted.
No, I think you're apt actually out there. So in fact, I'm seeing more and more, Vishy, in the industry, people actually rooting for open source and doing things on their own. So this whole penchant for, I mean, at least I grew up in an era where I needed to have a product, a COTS product, and then deploy it out there. I think that fascination is no longer there. People are extremely comfortable, with small, custom built open source kind of products. And that's where some of these young, bright kids can come in and code and make your life easy out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, awesome. And thanks for that question, Vishy. I mean, likewise, audience, if you have a question, put it in the chat. It's a bit more easy if you raise your hand, and I can let you speak out there. I've captured a couple of questions on my phone. I'll come to that in a minute. But coming back to this whole technology in supply chain, the Indian context, the jugaad and the challenges, Balpreet, over to you.
So So as I talked about, means the challenges. Means I talked about how Asian Paints did it, or even Concretia did it. So as you talked about, Jugaad, we Indians are very good at it. However, before the Jugaad, let's talk about challenges. Then we'll figure out the Jugaad that people do about it. So for data analytics, and we talked about AI, ML, AI, means data science as a concept. What we need, the biggest input there, the raw material there is data. If I have good quality data ready to be used, nothing like it. However, this is where the challenge starts. Even from the erstwhile ERP implementations, if I put it that way, people used to have some homegrown solutions, or maybe disparate ERP and MFG Pros, different version somewhere, and then Oracle or an SAP, and they want to migrate into one. The same item would be called by different names in different plants or different systems. So this is one example of quality of data. This is the biggest impediment, or the effort, the time taker, or the effort where we need to put our efforts. If we are able to take care of that, I think then life becomes relatively easy. So this I would put data quality, and how much effort, time, and cost do we need to put it to make it ready for usage. With it comes a related part in terms of the expertise. Now, I know that my data quality is not good. I need to do it. So the question earlier, that in terms of how to do it, so which is where the next challenge is, do I have expertise in-house, or do I need to, as a project, outsource it, or or get some people as consultants, vendors to work and help me out to clear this up. So if I look at it, these are two biggest hassles that the organization go through, because for any organization, if they are not in the business of technology as such, then even to give a career to a person whom you need would be a challenge, because they would come in fine, but maybe after a so-called project is over, they don't see a career out there. That becomes then a hassle. So expertise and retention of talent is a bigger challenge. So now coming to the Jugaad part of it. So which is where, or the what we need to do. So we know the problem. So it's like half of the problem is solved. That I know what is to be done. On the data part of it, if I put in that bit of an effort, it would take time. Things would come into picture. So I just need to be patient as an organization. I would need to spend that time, be patient, that my data quality from a historical or an archive, whatever was in the past, it's as a one-time activity is done. I need to ensure that processes should be there, that henceforth any data which comes out, and if I'm putting them into one data warehouse or a data lake in, that process of data ingestion is clear, everything goes there, then has that cleansed level that I want to it. So it is just a matter of time and effort that we need to do. Expertise is something where I think the whole this sort of an ecosystem is catching up. We have more demand, less supply of quality people. I when I talk to my friends around various organizations, so it's like we joke about that anybody who knows a D of data science probably in the startup world would get 100% pay rise in these cases. So that is where expertise, we'll have to figure out how can we get those people in, and if we cannot, better than we outsource for now. That I see as a practical thing. If I am a manufacturing organization, I cannot give them a career, better I hire them. Means it is like means I take this as a service from a trusted partner who would be able to help me out with the journey. Later, I may want to build a COE, but then at least I would get started.
No. In fact, 2 or 3 points. If I were to respond to that, I mean, today skill is a big shortage. I mean, I know it because I mean we obviously have a big talent base in India, and I have a view of what's happening in the region, APAC, and all those things. It's pretty much, I mean, I would echo your sentiment. The D of data, you're into it. And it's that skill which is absolutely red hot. The amount of technology that is coming in, the amount of demand that is coming in, and it's all starting with fundamentally, where do we get good, clean source of data? I mean, discovering good, clean source of data seems to be like the panacea for everyone is trying to solve out there. So pretty much echo that. I'm also going to kind of, I'm going to, suddenly the word Jugaad and the way you kind of articulated about, how item codes were, talked about in different systems and different language. I'm going to actually tell you a story. I mean, there's one gentleman in this group actually who actually taught me, Professor Ravindra Tulsi, and he actually reminded me of the class that he took for us. Those days he used to teach us MRP and ERP systems in '96. I mean, that's like how dated it was. And I remember the chart that used to flip on the projector out there as to what are the impediments for a successful ERP implementation or MRP implementation. And one of the things was the Indian Jugaad and the availability of data. But Tulsi, sir, I don't know if you remember it. I still remember it. so that was as fundamental then as it is today as well. I mean, just that the variety of data actually has become huge, but fundamentally the quality of data still remains a core problem out there. Okay, on that note, there's a question on the chat which I've just picked up. So the question is from Venugopal. Hey, thanks, Venu, for the question. Can you give us some examples of analytics is used to assess and mitigate supply chain risk from a procurement sourcing through delivery and dispatching? So more like a risk mitigation kind of a use case of analytics in supply chain procurement sourcing, Balpreet.
Procurement sourcing
through delivery and dispatching kind of a area.
So sourcing of raw material, then I manufacture, then I deliver and dispatch and deliver. So it's effectively everything from source to deliver.
Yeah.
So risk mitigation, we can put up, number of models, if I put it that way, breaking those into specific areas. So if you look at it from a sourcing perspective, I was talking to a friend of mine in a different manufacturing industry. So I was surprised to know that organization had just one vendor to supply a critical raw material. So there is no data needs therein. It is plain and simple. I should not be reliant on only one supplier. So these are like basics. For whatever reason, probably it got missed out by them. Now, if you look at in terms of what and how I could use data. So maybe Prasad, your example in terms of how you talked about we could save couple of days from when the material is landing up at the port. So that's sort of one use case which can be put to use. That what do I need to do or what else do I need to do? There are some proactive risk mitigation plan that people need to do. And something like when that ship got stuck in Suez happened. So that is something when I may have to do a reactive, that can I fly in something. So those are all here. If I put it that way, not everything can come out of a model out of it. So it is probably, if not 80-20, a 90 or a 95 being done by the model, and rest 5 to 10% being done by humans. So risk mitigations, whatever we know, can be built into the model. It can tell me that how much do I store a min-max level, and there are exceptions where I would still need to go ahead and do from a sourcing perspective. We had been talking about JIT, but in some cases, probably JIT may not be of help if I get early warning signals. Where I do not, probably we will get stuck. So that's about the sourcing. So once, assuming that is sorted, if I have a long lead time item which takes 90-120 days, I keep my inventory accordingly, and these models can quickly do a what if. I know about a couple of such models where figuring out which is the better partner to source from. There used to be earlier models which took like 2.5-3 days to come out with an answer, and using better algorithms, it started churning out responses within an hour, so less than 60 minutes. So that's the power of technology that can be used. In the same way, when we move to distribution or maybe dispatches, so there also we could have specific. So if I have to dispatch from an logistics optimization, can I use a multimodal, whether it makes sense? Now I remember one case, when there was a logjam between Karnataka and Kerala, and all logistics providers started looking at, can I take it in some other route rather than Karnataka to Tamil Nadu? Can I, let's say, go via Andhra, Telangana, etc.? Or can I do a movement via ship, a multimodal, that let me go to Kerala, from there I go to a port in Tamil Nadu. So these are all some part of it only can be done by a model is what I would say. Rest has to be, in conjunction with a human intelligence, which later get fed into it, so that next time it happens, the model would know what is to be done.
Sure.
I hope, if not all, a part of the question has got answered.
No, absolutely. And Venu, feel free to kind of do a poster follow-on question. And you're absolutely right. In fact, I mean, just to kind of add on to what you mentioned, Balpreet, I mean, for the last 12 months or so, in fact, what we have actually been doing is working with some of our major retailers and rewriting all the models. So we've actually had to kind of get the models calibrated in the whole COVID scenario. So there was this whole COVID index that had to be crafted. And the COVID index was obviously a function of the propensity of COVID, the stage at which COVID occurred in that particular area. So there was actually a district level COVID index that was formulated, which therefore had a bearing on the forecastability and the supplyability in that sense of goods in that particular district, which is what was then aggregated to saying that, look, this is how the overall supply demand positions will actually get impacted. Did it for a major market, more in the North America cases. It didn't. We tried to do it in the Indian scenario. There was obviously some bit of resistance and data issues out there, but in the Southeast Asian market, okay, in the Indonesia market, Philippines market, we again found use cases of a similar index. Again, because so two or three elements. One is the depth, the impact of COVID on supply chain. Second was it was also used to somewhere track health and safety of some of these workmen in the supply chain. Because part of the supply chain was also impacted by availability of people because of COVID impact, etc. Again, we use some of those cases out there, but there was more in context refinement of the old problem given COVID times out there. Thanks for that, Balpreet. I mean, if I were to move on, and this is I guess my favorite, to be honest, right? I mean, that's because coming from an SI background, I mean, our intent is to obviously go and make a hard sell on technology implementations, give us a business problem, here is the business case, etc. How does decisions actually get taken on the other side? Is it always that corporates look for a business case? I mean, you are a senior professional. Would you always look for a business case, or do you take up kind of a judgment call? Look, this is strategic, and therefore let me embark on it. Where do these two levers play? Business case versus strategic imperatives on a technology investment?
Well, business case, whatever I have seen earlier in consulting and here as well. So even means what we term within Reliance as that we are the internal consultants, that we consult the business. So in a way, without a business case, nobody would put in the money, because if I have to just go and say, there's a latest new technology, very good. OK, let's start doing AI and ML. So they'll say that what's my value? What's in it for me? Why do you want me? Finally, for us, we only service our internal customers. So we are a cost center. So they'll say that why should I pay for an extra resource that you are asking from me? So at the end of it, if it doesn't make sense, so it may not always be a dollar, number that we can, or a rupee number that we can ascribe to it. If I give in a productivity improvement and efficiency improvement also, my business stakeholders would be happy. At the end of it, if the person is free to do some better productive work, and hence it will be a business case. Now, when we talk about strategic investment also, yes, at the end of, so what I look at it in terms of it, when we talk about strategic investment, it's more about you don't get the whole ROI in 1 to 3 quarters. You may have to wait for multi-year program, and hence you start seeing it. So at the end of it, if the top management or that the business heads level are agreeable to it, they are ready to wait for that period of time, it would make sense. So it's more of the overall storytelling in terms of you might not see something fructifying quickly, but be assured that maybe in 6 to 8 quarters, you'll start seeing a substantial number. It's like that, inflection point. After that, you'll see a big change. Till that point of time, you may not have any transformed numbers. It'll just be a step change. So that's how I look at it. And hence, when we have to take it, we should be taking it to the business stakeholders in terms of from their perspective as well. That can I give them some low-hanging fruit? That okay, from a technology perspective, can I give you a quick dashboard or maybe a small algorithm where you start seeing some bit out of it and saying that I see something and I'm ready to wait for the long-term strategic investment you have asked me for. So a mix of it to show something in a quarter or maybe a 4-5 month duration, and something which makes them happy after looking at it, and they're ready to wait and put in that investment for 1.5-2 years.
Got it. I'll just take a pause if the audience has any question, or I'll keep moving. Okay, Abdul, go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you, Balpreet. I just have a couple of questions. First is related to mid management. In our company, it's a manufacturing company. I am part of IT department, where I look for supply chain APO tool, as well as SAC, which is the latest product of SAP. So the issue is that from the mid management, they always try to conceal the information so that they do not get exposed themselves and do not lose the leverage over the operations that they have to IT. And the second, when we approach to top management, they always ask about ROI. What are the financial, how to ascribe this benefit into finance? So ROI is, difficult to calculate. What are the other financial parameters like cash flow or, blah, blah, blah? What are the parameters to better convince them? So whatever you invest, you'll be getting better return.
So, one connect when you talked about SAP and APO. So I started my supply chain journey as an APO consultant. So it has a soft corner. So that's now when you talk about, the ROI, so that's where the point that I talked about earlier is not always we might be able to tell them that if you do this, you would be able to see a 10% increase in your top line or a bottom line directly that way. However, what can be, provided is that if you go through, a couple of these, initiatives or these programs, what you may see is that productivity increases. Let's say, for example, if I, bring in a couple of examples here, not on an Indian context, but bigger organization. So what Schneider Electric did, that their order processing used to be manual in one of their divisions. This was a point few years back. They automated it. They had data, and they could put in an automation based on that, and this 2-hour duration with manual intervention, but brought down to less than 4 minutes. So if one order, they are saving like 115, 116 minutes, and n number of orders, let's say on an average in a month, it corresponds to how many person hours saved. Then multiply it with whatever average salary of that department, you would get a number. So it may not be a direct number, but you can still say that this is a notional number that we are saving. Mostly the such initiatives would bring in some sort of a saving asset. So the person who is getting freed up can do some other value added work. In the same way, now when you talked about middle management sort of hoarding the data, or hoarding, don't want to get in that transparency, that's a challenge in a lot of organizations. In my consulting life as well, I saw that. Now, which is where somewhere there has to be one department head, one person at at a top level who would have to get convinced that if let's say there are multiple departments, one person at least becomes that change agent who gets the thing through, which is the point that I talked about in terms of those low hanging fruits. Somewhere something that we can provide to them, that see, you wanted some improvement in a short duration, we have given you that. Then that person would be able to become our change agent, take it to his peers and say that, this delivers value. This is the first part that we have seen. Now you have to tell your lower downs that start giving in that time and effort into it. Every organization, there'll be probably one person who might be able to help. Most of them, change management from, ERP times, we have been hearing that this is the most difficult thing. I've lived that in a lot of programs. That is the challenge, and not an easy thing to do. You'll have to figure out, who becomes your lawyer, who will fight your case with others. So this is how it happens. There'll be tweaks to be done with the nuances or with the interplay within your organization, and things might change that way.
Good. Hey,
Thank
thanks
you
for that. Any other questions, team? No. Okay. So we'll continue. So Balpreet, the next is what is the internal perspective, I mean, what kind of roadmap should companies be ready with? What are the preparation they need to do? Funds, timelines, trainings, team. How do you kind of get this journey started from a internal? I mean, when you look at from a corporate standpoint.
Yep. So if we relate to this question from Abdul and maybe what we discussed earlier as well, and I think this was one point you mentioned at the start. So the first thing that the organization should do in terms of figuring out where are they in terms of a maturity matrix. So if let's say if it's an overall supply chain transformation that is being done, figure out that I am at a level 1 or a 2. Where am I? Specifically, from the journey on data analytics, data science. So whether they are at level 1, what we may call as visibility, or they are not even at that level, that I don't know, people do it in their Excels and they are in silos, but maybe even top management struggles to get data. This I had heard from one of our, in my consulting times, and one of the top management said that I don't know what is happening. I think even Abdul mentioned that. So it is like, because they want to showcase their importance, that, okay, I will only tell you what is happening and I'll take a couple of days to get back to you. So even if visibility is not there, then they know that maybe I'm at a level 0. I will need to probably first come to a visibility level. Then next to visibility would be, let's say, predictive. That now that I have visibility, what is happening where, can I start looking at it, that what are the problems and how do I take care of the problem? How can data help me do that? Level 3 would be prescriptive. So it's like you have to do this, and it's sort of A, B, C, D is to be done so that you take care of the issues. Finally, it is that the nirvana stage, what we call as give it to the AI and be happy, and they'll be able to run the business for us. Any problems they'll take care of. So that's the cognitive piece of it, which probably we would achieve, but may not be enterprise wide at the first instance. It would take time. So once I know where I am, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I would then have to look at it, the kind of investment that I can make on a yearly basis. That would help me make a target that maybe in first year I may want to go at maybe a 1.5, not completely 2. Some of my processes may be at 2, others may be still reaching towards 2, let's say. So some of them may be predictive, others would be tending towards predictive. So this way, one means maybe a multi-year path can be charted. So this will tell me the investment bit of it, that okay, with it, do I need to go to an open source part? If open source, then probably I need to be expertise heavy. People who can run that, because then I cannot catch hold of a collar of a COTS engagement manager, say that my system has gone wrong, you help me out with it. Then I'm on my own because I've just got used an open source product. So then that expertise has to be built in. So probably you'll need a very strong team. If it is a COTS product, which is where, let's say from a, dashboarding tool, if I look at the Gartner, magic quadrant, so Tableau or, Power BI are there on the visionary, levels. And then there are so on and so forth, so many other, tools therein. So based on what you want, ability to execute or vision, you have to figure out that what is the investment do I need to make in there. Now, let's say, or it could be, means the other thing could be, do I buy something in-house or I keep it everything as a software as a service, a SaaS model that I'll use it, I'll pay per usage or pay per license that way. So multiple these things will correspond to that final investment. A smaller organization may not want to, invest on these licenses, but a bigger conglomerate may go ahead and take a Power BI or a Tableau license, unlimited or a big number that a lot of their people can do it. So this way, overall transformation plan has to come in, and then they'll be able to move ahead with that. And then the data quality part, as we talked about, those things then start coming it as an implementation journey or a plan there.
Correct. I mean, I'm going to take a flip the whole narrative to a bit of a concern that we also see brewing, right? I mean, we all talk about great success stories. Everyone's doing a hard sell. This is great. This is the business value, etc. Life's not so easy. I mean, there are failures, there are challenges, etc. Your learnings, if you could share some examples of failures that you have seen, risks for failures, and how do you overcome that one in this context?
So I think the biggest challenge is change management. So we talked about in last few minutes. So people don't want to let go of what they feel is their importance, that I am the one who gets things done. Now, if there comes in an automation or an algorithm which will make life easy, and what I told is an next day effort can be done in a matter of minutes, what's my value? So that and how do we break through this ceiling and take it beyond? So that I feel is the biggest challenge. If this is taken care of at least partially to get started off with, then the other challenges that we talked about earlier then comes into picture: data, expertise. On top of it, things that also come in, that if I have to get into this journey, then let's say my data has to be in one place, a data lake or a data warehouse. And if I have so many disparate systems, how do I get it aligned in a way that I start using it almost real time, if not real time? A lot of effort goes into that integration. So this, if I can, I remember an example of Renault Group when they did that, enterprise-wide digital transformation. So they had more than 100 odd such, various IT instances, an ERP or other solution across the globe. They started converging into some regional models so that the data gets aggregated at a region level. Then they made one global model. So this is probably one good way of doing it, that rather than achieving going at the highest level, probably take it at a level below first. This is how it can be built in. If this is taken care of, if I start getting in data, then modeling and all will take its time. At times, I remember one of the CIO in a conference talking about that. He told his business stakeholders that if you need something, then either you should have started having correct data, or tagging it a year or a couple of years earlier. Otherwise, you start doing it now, but don't expect an output very good enough to be used in a quarter or two. It will take its time. Because maybe from a demand planning perspective, if I give an example, if I need to look at trend, what happens in, let's say, Christmas every year, or an Indian festival context, that a Diwali moves 10 days here or there. What happens in the Diwali season? And on top of it, the tadka of COVID, what would happen? So we need data a few years, and then we'll be able to come up with this. So things would take time. I cannot say that means as a business that I have given you the money and start giving me an output in 3 months or 6 months. Whatever can be done, yes. However, few things would take its own time. Apart from all these things, training needs, even for an end user, if we are giving them, some new dashboards, and if we want to make them sort of self-sufficient, let's say Tableau dashboard is something where people can be self-sufficient, that sort of a drag and drop, they can do basic things at their end. So we may have to teach them that don't go to an IT guy, he'll say, come back after 7 days, I am busy. Better you try to learn something on your own. So that probably could be a training need that comes in. So these are probably areas that I see the challenges, and how an organization can take care of those challenges.
Got it. I mean, and it hasn't changed much. I mean, it's like change management has always been right up there for a few decades out there. People, yes. People are the ones who make it successful. In fact, one thing that I personally advocate is start small and scale it to speed. I would rather fail fast, fail cheap, than go and build your your euphoric, your absolutely idealistic transformation box and then wait for miracles to happen. And that's the new mantra. Thankfully, I think technologies these days are very amenable for you to kind of take small bits and pieces, chunks, and then navigate your way through. And if it works, just scale it. Using the power of technology to scale it up quickly out there. So thanks for that, Balpreet. I know we've got a
sorry. On this, probably I can just cite a couple of examples. Nothing related to supply chain, more on the other user experience bit. So I saw on a given day, I went to use the Amazon Pay UPI, and I saw that the interface has changed. I updated the app, and when I was there at the store, and I saw it change, but only the front page had changed. Everything else, the menu remained the same. So that's the power, that I can send in bits and pieces. I don't have to wait that the complete app would get overhauled. So the microservices concept as such. Something similar I saw ICICI Bank has done on their internet banking. The landing page dashboard has changed. It's a new look, looks good. Otherwise, everything else remains the same. So as you said, that's the power of technology. I only want to change that X percentage. I'll be able to do that. So fail fast, go slow, as you said, that has to be the mantra. Don't think about a monolith as we used to do it a decade back. It has to be broken down into as small bits and pieces as possible.
Correct, correct. Yeah, great examples, Balpreet. We have a lot of professionals on this call. I mean, and obviously there's an inherent question that I keep getting, and I just want to hear your perspective, right? How do you get on this journey? I mean, for somebody who's been in the production planning systems, or somebody who's been in the IT department, somebody who's a demand planner or a material planner, I mean, is this journey only for the software techies to get in and code themselves, or is there a career path and a route map that functional team members can actually jump onto the bandwagon that we're talking about, Balpreet?
Yes. So, and the short answer, yes, the functional people can come in. So if I'm a demand planner or a supply planner or a production planner, I can get into it. Now, how can I get into it? So I may have to think on exactly what my target role is. If I want to, use the power of analytic tools, the visualization tool, I think that's a fair ask. And it's just a matter of learning how to use that tool, that front end. Maybe there may be a bit of, I would say calculations to be done the way we do it in Excel. Because if you are a planner without an Excel and those macros and calculations, you can't think of your, a day gone past. So that is something similar that I may have to do. Okay, and then it's basically charts the way we look at it in Excel. So a little different tool, maybe a little more learning, but that's the level one. I would say people can get in and start getting a little more comfortable and confident. Going ahead, if somebody actually wants to, pivot their career into data science completely, yes, then that's a change, a bigger change as such. So I've seen a lot of young people that I know, means they are getting for higher studies into something which is more of a interface between technology and business, sort of a master's in MIS, where they need to be a little more hands-on on coding. Let's say they'll have to code on Python so that they can get more out of data science. But with their few years in the supply chain role, they are able to make better data scientists as well. They don't have to wait for an SME to come in and tell them that, what is this for a pure data scientist, a data is just a number. But for somebody who has transitioned into data science from being a planner, would be able to say that, okay, there is a context to it. A and B are not similar. I have to treat them separately. So that way, yes, a bigger pivot, but then if somebody is inclined to it, they can do it. Otherwise, learn the visualization tools, do what you are doing, what you are good at in your area in supply chain. Just use that tool the way you have been using in Excel. Just use this visualization tool, a bit of an SQL query, etc. And that would be a good upskilling for you moving ahead in your career. Anything what you would want to add, Prasad?
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo that. I mean, I personally think I would work with a consultant who's techno-functional, because he or she can go back to the business and narrate the story far better than somebody who can just say, look, I don't know what you want. This is a data problem or that is a logic problem, right? So in fact, for me, I was just talking to a colleague of mine this morning, right? Now, how do you pivot around these two functions? You start with a functional journey. Okay, yes, you struggle for the first couple of years in the technology world because you are learning, you are a rookie in that sense, dirtying your hands, etc. And my point was, after 2 years, suddenly you pivot back to your functional experience and pull it back again and merge it with technology. You are an unbeatable combination. So yes, you will have to go through that trauma of 2 years of coding and trying to change yourself. But moment you pivot those 2 years and you combine the functional knowledge and with technical, you are an unbeatable combination. And that's actually the real hot skill that everyone's looking for in the marketplace. Hey, thanks. I know we are up on time. I didn't realize in a 1 hour, like I told you, we will not put. I don't think we. In fact, we had a very interesting conversation. I'm just going to take a last chance at the audience. If anybody has a question. Nope. Anybody from the steering committee? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Great. Hey, on that note, I think, Balwinder, first of all, it's been a brilliant conversation. I mean, you actually covered a lot of topics, and it's not easy to kind of go around between academics, between consulting, between practitioner, between technology, between functions. I think brilliant narrative and great perspective. So thank you for taking out the time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So hope to stay in touch as we kind of continue the discussion going forward. Thank you, audience. Thank you for joining us. It's been lovely. Love the interaction. Thank you for all the questions and thank you for joining. Arvind, I'm going to pass the bit into you for any final comments from your side. Yeah.
Thank you, Kurup. Balpreet, thank you so much. Very, very appreciative of your time, your thoughts, and what you shared. Very intriguing. On behalf of SCPC and actually Novarex, who is our, we collaborate a lot with putting events like these up. Thank you very much. We look forward to being in touch. Thank you.
Thanks for giving this platform an opportunity. It's always good to, talk and take questions. So definitely, as Prasad, you said, it was a free-flowing conversation. I hope everybody was awake over this 1 hour. At least I enjoyed a lot, chatting with you, knowing those perspectives. So it's always so. Anytime if anybody wants to reach out to me, so I'm there on LinkedIn. Please reach out. So happy to answer or share our knowledge and grow together therein. And as we talked about Novarex, so Ravindra sir is my senior from, it used to be REC Rourkela then in his times and my time. So
Okay.
Met him a couple of times at the alumni meet. So it's always good to get connected with Novarex anytime that I can and share my knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, team. Cheers.
Have a nice evening
Thank you.
and rest of the weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.